Yo, the enemy's public, I gotta keep my eyes open. Pay attention, stop walking around like you blindfolded. This not the World Cup, but Nasir be kicking knowledge. This the type of information you can never learn in college. It's time to fight back, it's no more trying to play it cool. We got interviews, podcasts, and got the latest news. So sit back and relax, we about to get it started. Earth is a canvas, and guess who's the con artist? They brainwashing us, the system corrupted. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. I said you are now rocking with the enemy's public. Hey.
A once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. The rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise. Author Angela King James presents Fire. Get it on Amazon, on paperback, or Kindle.
This is The Enemy's Public. I am Bro.Nasir. I hope that everyone's having a good evening so far. This evening, I want to go over how the United States of America and the world, on how they do their business with extortion, shamanism, shape-shifting, global intrigue, bullying, fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, extortion, sex, and murder. I want to go over John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman and Political Assassinations. Before I get started, I want to say peace to my brother, Big Dog Philly OG, He Who Enlightens, Stephanie Burke, Ghetto Child Clinic, and Doe Eyes TV. Thank you for coming through. John Perkins is an author and activist who had 10 books on global intrigue, shamanism, and transformation, including Touching the Jaguar, Shape-Shifting, and the classic Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The book sold 2 million copies and was also on New York bestsellers list for 70 weeks, well over a year. Now, what does an economic hitman do? An economic hitman job is to, on behalf of whoever assigned him to the job, is to cheat countries around the world out of trillions of dollars. Their tools include fraudulent financial reports, rigged elections, payoffs, extortion, sex, murder. John Perkins knows this for a fact because John Perkins was an economic hitman. There are 4 types of hitmen. It's the novice, the beginner who may be carrying out a hit for the first time, the dilettant, the journeyman, and the master. Those are the 4 types of hitmen. By definition, being a hitman is a illegal criminal occupation. It's certainly not legal. The equivalent legal version with countries that don't abide by human rights conventions is extrajudicial killers with dispense with legal proceedings to skip killing the subject of mandate or order. The most types of reported economic crimes are tax evasion, benefit fraud, money laundering, online fraud, identity fraud, investment fraud, bribery, and corruption. Peace to my brother, the realist McCoy. Hitmen are paid $5,000 to $30,000 per killing, an average of $15,000, and the most common weapon used is firearms. Now, economic hitmen also do political assassinations. We're going to go over that a little later because there were a lot of political assassinations in my lifetime. I was born in the mid-60s. So Malcolm was still here. Well, not Malcolm, because I was born at the end of the year. Malcolm was assassinated at the beginning of the year. But shortly after, in December, I came into the world. But Martin Luther King was still here. Huey P. Newton, and all those who were politically assassinated. Bhutto, Yasser Arafat, who was medically assassinated. Assassination don't just happen with firearms. They do medical assassination. They poison people also all over the world. So the economic hitman act in the interest of the nation that assigns he or her. If you look at the movie A Long Kiss Goodnight, that was an economic hitman. It was a female, but she was an economic hitman. And they plan bloodless coups. What they do, they'll go in first. They'll try to buy off leaders and make them not act in the interests of their people. They'll overthrow them. And if that don't work, they would assassinate them. Now, I'm going to play this documentary with John Perkins going over his experience as an economic hitman. And I'm going to put the link in the chat as I play the video.
A few women who run our biggest corporations, and they really act as the emperor of this empire. They control our media, either through direct ownership or advertising. They control most of our politicians because they finance their campaigns, either through their corporations or through personal contributions that come out of the corporations. And they're not elected. They don't serve a limited term. They don't report to anybody. They really very, very much are running things, and they work under the premise that they should maximize profits regardless of the environmental and social costs.
Would you mention that governments and corporations and how the private enterprise is essentially
right?
And actually, in coupled with that, could you mention how the government essentially is invisible when it comes to the actions of the corporatocracy?
Right.
It's they put the front group of the unregulated private corporations.
Yeah, at the very at the very top of the corporatocracy, you really can't tell whether a person's working for a private corporation or the government because they're always moving back and forth. So, you've got a guy who one moment is the president of a big construction company like Halliburton, and the next moment he's vice president of the United States. or the president who was in the oil business. And this is true whether you've got Democrats or Republicans in the office. You have the moving back and forth through the revolving door. So you really can't distinguish. And in a way, our government is invisible a lot of the time, and its policies are carried out by our corporations on one level or another. And then again, the policies of the government are basically forged by the corporatocracy and then presented to the government. They become government policy. So it's an incredibly cozy relationship and a very dangerous relationship. I think that's part of what, as we move forward and we move out of this empire and we look for solutions, how do we create a better world for our children and grandchildren? One of the most important things is to break that bond there and to make people responsible more to just creating a decent world, creating an environmentally sustainable, socially just and peaceful world. It's interesting because the big corporations depend so much on the banking system, the whole finance.
Just letting you know, this stream is really for the attentive audience, the ones who, pay attention, because he's going to go over many ways how a economic hitman, how he operates, and he's going to make examples of the people who they actually hit.
Financial system, the whole Wall Street system, and the banks. On the other hand, the banks depend on the corporations to make their money. So with the money that they have, they've got to invest it someplace. So they've got to invest it primarily in corporations. And so there's this symbiotic relationship between them that exists. You couldn't have the huge corporate structures that we have without the banking structure that we have, and you couldn't have the banking structure that we have without the corporate structure that we have. And once again, it's that corporatocracy. And you've got the people moving back and forth between these things, working with each other. So the big corporations almost always have financial people on their boards, and the big financial institutions almost always have corporate people on their boards. And there's this interweaving and intermeshing at the very, very top. And then all of them, at one point or another, probably work for the government or with the government. And the government people come into the banking system or the corporate system when they retire from government. And then maybe they go back again at some point in time. So it's a very insidious and I'd have to say a corrupt system, a system that just feeds into the hands of what we call the corporatocracy, and to a large degree works against everybody else in the world.
You notice he said corporatocracy. That means not democracy. Democracy is supposed to be for the people, so they say, but a corporatocracy is people who work solely on behalf of corporate interest. So when you see these economic hitmen, they're working on corporate interests. Just like the wars, anybody who have fought in a war, in all actuality, you are a economic hitman by default, because you thought you were doing something patriot. Big Dog Philly OG did a stream earlier, and he said they lied to us. They lied, they're lying, and they're going to lie. And by default, anyone who served in the military are economic hitmen by default.
Well, we economic hitmen really have been the ones responsible for creating this first truly global empire. And we work many different ways. But perhaps the most common is that we will identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, and then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of it.
Thank you for Grateful for coming through. Black Panther Jackie Brown, thank you for coming through. I appreciate that.
Sister organizations. But the money never actually goes to the country. Instead, it goes to our big corporations to build infrastructure projects in that country, power plants, industrial parks, ports, things that benefit a few rich people in that country, in addition to our corporations, but really don't help the majority of the people at all, who are too poor to use much electricity or the ports, or don't have the skills to get jobs in industrial parks. However, those people, the whole country is left holding a huge debt. It's such a big debt they can't repay it, and that's part of the plan, if they can't repay it. And so at some point, we economic hitmen go back to them and say, listen, you lost a lot of money, can't pay your debt, so sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Allow us to build a military base in your country, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world like Iraq, or vote with us on the next UN vote. And in that way, we've really created an empire, but we've done it very, very subtly. It's clandestine. So all the empires of the past were built on the military, and everybody knew they were building them. So the British knew they were building them, the French, the Germans, the Romans, the Greeks, and they were proud of it. And they always had some excuse, like spreading civilization, spreading some religion, something like that. But they knew they were doing it. We don't. The majority of the people in the United States have no idea that we're living off the benefits of a clandestine empire. That today there's as much slavery in the world, more slavery in the world than ever before. That our shirts, our shoes, everything we own is made under the guise of this empire, and that there's a tremendous amount of people around the planet suffering as a result of this. We are less than 5% of the world's population living in the United States. We're consuming more than 25% of the world's resources. That's a tragedy.
And these are some of the people who they hit.
So Arbenz, what happened with Arbenz?
When Arbenz became president of Guatemala, the country was very much under the thumbs of United Fruit Company, the big international corporations. And Arbenz ran on this ticket that says, we want to get the land back to the people. And once he took power, he was implementing policies that would do exactly that, give land rights back to the people. United Fruit didn't like that very much. And so they hired a public relations firm, launched a huge campaign in the United States to convince the United States people, the citizens of the United States, and the press of the United States, and the Congress of the United States, that Arbenz was a Soviet puppet, and that if we allowed him to stay in power, the Soviets would have a foothold in this hemisphere. And that at that point in time was a huge fear on everybody's mind. We all the Red Terror, the communist terror. And so, to make a long story short, out of this public relations campaign came a commitment on the part of the CIA and the military to take this man out. And in fact, we did. We sent in planes, we sent in soldiers, we sent in jackals, we sent everything in to take him out, and did take him out. And as soon as he was removed from office, the new guy that took over after him basically reinstated everything to the big international corporations, including United Fruit.
That's what they do. They'll take out the original leader and put in a puppet leader that would do everything in their interest.
So move on to Roldos. What happened?
Ecuador, for many, many years, had been ruled by pro-U.S. dictators, often relatively brutal. They often claimed to be democratic, but they weren't. They were dictators. And then it was decided that they were going to have a truly democratic election. Jaime Roldos ran for office. He was a young, dynamic lawyer, and his main goal, he said, as president, would be to help Ecuador use its resources, particularly its oil, to pull its poor people up by their own bootstraps, to make sure that Ecuador's resources were used to help the people. And he won, overwhelming, by more votes than anybody had ever won anything in Ecuador. And again, first democratically elected president after many years of essentially dictators. And he began to implement these policies to, in fact, do that, to make sure that the oil companies were taxed, or if not, to be nationalized, to make sure that the profits from oil went to help the people. Well, we didn't like that in the United States. I was sent down as one of several economic hitmen, and in that particular job, I wasn't the primary one. I was going to send in from Panama to help some of the other ones to change Roldos, to corrupt him, to bring him around.
Houston,
let him know,
okay,
you can get very rich, you and your family, if you play our game. But if you continue to try to keep these policies you've promised, you're going to go. He wouldn't listen. He knew that his life was in severe danger. I've become good friends with his daughter in recent years. She's now in her 40s and a member of the Congress in Quito, in Ecuador. And she said her dad was very aware that he was taking huge risks. but he took them anyway, and he was assassinated.
And the means of assassination was?
His airplane, officially his airplane crashed. He and
Another
his
way of
wife
assassinating.
were on board, and several other men and women, and the defense minister and his wife. And the pilot of that plane, according
They also have assassinations by aircraft crashing, i.e., Ron Brown in the 1990s. His plane went down because he was about to expose corruption in the government. So his plane crashed into a mountain. Just know that.
according to Marta Roldos, Jaime's daughter, was a
Peace to my brother Jared Jaguar. Salute to you, good brother.
very good family friend, wouldn't have done anything foolish. She says that the official reports, which claim that the weather was very bad and they hit a high mountain, are erroneous. The weather wasn't that bad where they were. By the standards of Ecuador, it was raining. It rains a lot in the coastal plain, and they weren't even in the high mountains. They were coming up in the coastal area, according to Marta. Also, what we do know is that as soon as the plane crashed, the whole area was cordoned off, and nobody was allowed in. Even the local police, the Ecuadorian police, were not allowed in. The only people allowed in were U.S. military from a nearby base, and some of the Ecuadorian military that worked closely with the Ecuadorian military. When an investigation was launched, two of the key witnesses died in car accidents before they had a chance to testify. A lot of very, very strange things that went on around the assassination of Jaime Roldos. I, like most people who've really looked at this case, had absolutely no doubt that it was an assassination. And of course, in my position as an economic hitman, I was always expecting something to happen to Jaime, whether it be a coup or assassination. I wasn't sure, but that he would be taken down because he was not being corrupted. He would not allow himself to be corrupted the way we wanted to corrupt him.
Right.
So airplane crashes are a great way to assassinate people because the evidence is destroyed, and it's virtually impossible to prove foul play.
So let's move on to Allende. Is that the pronunciation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Allende again, president of Chile, and Allende went up against a very powerful U.S. corporation, ITT, International Telephone and Telegraph Company, and a guy named Harold Janine, who was a very powerful figure at the time. And Janine decided that Allende had to go, brought in the CIA. The CIA went in and took him out. Now, Allende was relatively easier to justify than some of the others because he was an avowed socialist, if you want to call it that, but he was doing really good things for his people. However, ITT was totally opposed to him and the policies that he was implementing there. It's an interesting case too, because if we look today at ITT, we don't find much. It still exists, but it's a very small company, the shadow of what it used to be. And yet at one time, it had been one of the most powerful companies in the world, a company that was able to bring down the presidency of Allende in Chile. And I think that, again, sends a tremendously strong message to us that these corporations are vulnerable and that we do have clout, we the people, because ITT is gone. Many other big corporations that move around during most of my lifetime are gone now too. You look at the airline industry. Look at Pan American, which was a very, very powerful company at one time, owned Intercontinental Hotels and many other businesses. Gone today. There's so much of that out there, of companies that have disappeared, and the people who run these companies are very, very aware of that. That gives us a lot of leverage. We, the people, can exercise power of these companies and force them to do a better job.
Going over to Panama.
So Torrijos, just describe in the same kind of brief capacity what happened to him, and denote the plane crash as well as connections.
Omar Torrijos, president of Panama, was one of my favorite people. I really, really liked him. He was very charismatic. He was a guy who really wanted to help his country. And when I tried to bribe him or corrupt him, he said, "Look, John," he called me Juanito. He said, "Look, Juanito, I don't need the money. I got a good life. I got a good house. I got a good..."
You liked him, but he had to go, huh?
Wife. I got whatever I want in terms of yachts, and he was a guy who really liked his I'd like to have a good time. He was having a good time. And he said, but what I really need is for my country to be treated fairly. I need for the United States to repay the debts that you owe my people for all the destruction you've done here. I need to be in a position.
Salute to the brother, the good brother, he who enlightens. Thank you for coming through, good brother.
Position where I can help other Latin American countries win their independence and be free of this terrible presence from the north that you people are exploiting us so badly. I need to have the Panama Canal back in the hands of the Panamanian people. That's what I want. And so leave me alone. Don't try to bribe me.
It's only fair that the people in Panama have the Panama Canal in their hands.
It was 1981, and in May, Jaime Roldos was assassinated. And Omar was very aware of this. Afterwards, I heard from family members, and Marta Roldos, the daughter of Jaime Roldos, married Omar Torrijos' nephew. And the nephew told Marta, and I've heard this from a number of sources, that after that plane crash of Roldos's, Torrijos got his family together and he said, I'm probably next, but it's okay because I've done what I came here to do. I've renegotiated the canal. The canal will now be in our hands. He just finished negotiating the treaty with.
A lot of leaders in some of these countries use the natural resources and the wealth of their nation for the people. Unlike the United States are a capitalist country, and they're about corporate greed all over the world. They spend more money on military than they do on anything, you name it. They spend more money on the military than anything. And the only thing that their dollar is backed by all over the world is military might, because they know pretty soon people are going to be lighting cigars and burning this dollar. They're going to set it on fire because it's really worth nothing. It's a medium of exchange that's backed by military might and military might only.
With Jimmy Carter. So I've accomplished what I need to accomplish. I'm ready to die if that's what it's going to take. And he had dreams about an airplane crash. In June of that same year, just a couple of months later, he also went down in an airplane crash, which there's no question was executed by CIA-sponsored jackal.
It doesn't matter. If he didn't take a plane, he would crash his vehicle. They will assassinate him by, claiming that a paparazzi were following you in a caravan of vehicles, and your vehicle will crash. No matter if they have it out for you, they will get you.
There was a pass off of the radio, I think.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of evidence that one of the security guards, one of Torrijos' security guards, handed him at the last moment as he was getting on the plane a small tape recorder that contained a bomb.
Now we're going to Manuel Noriega.
Panama is a very interesting example because I tried to corrupt
Still in Panama
and bring him around. A great man as far as I was concerned. And I was very torn. On the one level, I didn't want to corrupt him. I really respected him for his integrity. On the other level, it was my job to corrupt him. And I knew that if I didn't, something more dire was likely to happen, which it did. He was assassinated. And
which is the same thing they do to our organizations. He couldn't corrupt one of our organizations. So they would get a willing participant that looked like us to come in and corrupt our organizations. They go in and they corrupt nations, they corrupt organizations, and make them what they are today. If you have any corrupt nation around the world, the person is not corrupt. They have been corrupted from the economic hitmen that were sent, and particularly by the United States government.
Panama into a tailspin. The soul was taken out of the country at that point in many respects. And eventually Noriega became president. Noriega had been, we now know, a CIA agent. He'd been paid a lot of money to help fight the Colombia drug cartel. So he was one of our guys. And we figured that once Noriega was in power, that we now could basically reverse the canal treaty that Torrijos had struck with Carter.
I'm going to say this. Because they couldn't corrupt Noriega in one way, they set him up in another way. The United States would do the dirt with you to get the dirt on you. Once they get the dirt on you, they use it against you to bring you down. Now, they went into, not the first time they did it, another man's nation being self-righteous, like they have a moral compass, and they arrested him on drug charges. And they arrested Saddam Hussein on crimes against humanity. They got a lot of damn nerves.
And turn that around and also reinstate the School of the Americas, the U.S. military bases in Panama, but Noriega wouldn't do it. He wasn't as much of a puppet as we thought he was. He wasn't willing to reverse those policies. Also, he continued what had begun under Torrijos with negotiations with the Japanese about financing and building a sea level canal. We didn't want to see that happen. If there was going to be a sea level canal, we wanted to finance and build it. And Noriega refused to drop out of those negotiations. So he was no longer our puppet. He wasn't playing the game. And on top of all of that, there's a lot of rumors, and I don't have any evidence to back this up. If there was evidence, it was destroyed. But there was an island off the coast of Panama called Contador, which I do know very well. It's still there. It's a resort. And in the 70s, this was a place where deals were struck and where you could take people on private yachts or however you wanted to do it. And there was plenty of cocaine, all kinds of drugs, sex, all kinds of illicit activities, and whatever happened on Contador stayed on Contador. And this was a common knowledge. I used it. I took people there. I bribed people on Contador. And everybody was doing it that was involved in South America.
Salute to my good brother Smoke Signal, my good brother Hawkeye. Peace.
And so the question has always been asked, we wanted to take out Noriega. Okay, why did we bomb a city? Why did we kill between 2,000 and 6,000 innocent civilians and destroy this part of the city? And I was just in Panama a couple of weeks ago. It was amazing. I traveled around, went down to that part of the city. I talked to people from taxi drivers to government officials about all of this. And, you know,
they do that wickedness, foreign and domestic. They don't only bomb cities outside the United States. They bomb cities in the United States and call it a terrorist attack.
They're still like furious at the United States. Why did we do that? We could have taken out Noriega. He was not that difficult to take out. That's our goal. But we didn't have to go in and bomb the section of the city. The best explanation I've heard, the most logical one that I can come up with, is that one of the buildings down there belonged to the military or the national security forces. Panama really didn't have an army per se, but it had these national security forces. And this building was totally demolished. There's a lot of eyewitnesses who say once it was demolished, a special unit of the U.S. military went in and made sure that everything was demolished. People saw this. I talked to people. And the rumor was that within that building, there were a lot of photographs of things that went on in Contadora. That Noriega, unlike Torrijos, had put cameras up. Torrijos was very adamant nothing would ever leave, and he didn't have any cameras, I'm pretty sure, but that Noriega did. And he had photographs, and including very compromising photographs of the president, the first President Bush's son, the current President Bush, before he was president. But they had some very compromising photographs of him and a lot of high-up politicians and businessmen. Now, again, I have no evidence of this. If those photographs existed, they were destroyed because they would have been kept in that building. And it is It's the only explanation I've ever heard that makes
Where you
sense to me
been,
as
brother?
to why we went in and destroyed that particular part of the city, which was very vulnerable. A lot of old buildings around that when we knew once we sent in some fire bombs, the whole place had to go. And there were a tremendous number of very poor, innocent people living there. Between 2,000 and 6,000 died, depending on whose records. The United States admits something like 2,000. Panama says 6,000. Why would we have done that? That certainly is an explanation.
Mohammed
The
Moses.
precedent for economic hitman really began back in the early 50s when a president was elected in Iran, prime minister, democratically elected, Mossadegh. And he was considered to be the hope for democracy in the Middle East and around the world. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1951. But one of the things that he'd run on and began to implement was the idea that foreign oil companies needed to pay the Iranian people a lot more for the oil that they were taking out of Iran. The Iranian people should benefit from their own oil. Strange policy. And so once he took office, he began to implement this, including even threats and nationalizing foreign oil companies, particularly British Oil Company, which today is BP. We didn't like that, of course. But we were afraid to do what we normally were doing at that time, which was to send in the military, as we've done in other parts of the world, because Iran was right on the border with Russia. Russia was
good to see you, though, OG Green Machine. Good to see you, brother.
Now the primary enemy of ours, and Russia had nuclear weapons, and we very much feared a nuclear war. So we determined early on that we shouldn't take the normal position and send in the military into Iran. Instead, we sent in one CIA agent, Kermit Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt's relative. And Kermit went in with a few $1 million and was very, very effective and efficient. And in a short amount of time, spending a few $1 million, he managed to get Mossadegh overthrown and brought in the Shah of Iran to replace him.
Now, Roosevelt went in and got Mohammed Mossadegh overthrown, and they installed the Shah of Iran. This was probably like 1978, 1979, because I was in like the 8th grade at that time. I remember this clear. And what they did backfired, because the Shah of Iran held Americans hostage for over a year. He snatched up some Americans and held them hostage and wouldn't allow them to come back to the United States. I remember that clearly because in history, we was watching it every single day.
So he overthrew this democratically elected president, replaced him with a dictator who always was favorable to oil, and it was extremely effective. So back here in the United States, in Washington, people looked around and said, wow, that was easy and cheap and not messy. And so this established a whole new way of manipulating countries, of creating empire. The only problem with Roosevelt was that he was a card-carrying CIA agent, and had he been caught, the ramifications could have been pretty serious. So very quickly at that point, the decision was made to use private consultants to channel the money through the World Bank or the IMF or one of the other such agencies, to bring in people like me who worked for private companies, so that if we got caught, there would be no governmental ramifications connected with this. And it is interesting to me how this...
Most economic hitmen do not work in the public sector. And most of these reasons why the United States go to war is not of the public sector. It's a corporation going to war on behalf of another corporation. They're all in cahoots, all of the corporations, making the people think they're under a government, but they're under a corporation, a bloodthirsty, warmongering, pillaging corporation.
System has continued pretty much the same way for years and years and years, except the economic hitmen have got better and better and better. So we've and more subtle. But then we come up with very recently what happened in Venezuela. In 1998, Hugo Chavez gets elected president, following a long line of presidents who had been very corrupt and basically destroyed the economy of the country, put the largest middle class in Latin America had suddenly become impoverished because they put the country into such debt, and people into debt. And Chavez was elected amidst all that. Now, Chavez was not a radical opposed to the United States at that point in time. But after 9/11, Chavez went on the record of saying, I hope that the people of the United States will see what's going on here and understand that there's a lot of anger and resentment in the world. And that was resented in Washington, that he would say that. And so a campaign was launched to make him look like a villain. And then in 2002,
that's exactly what they do when they have it out for you. The very first thing they do is use the propaganda machine to paint you as a villain, as a boogeyman. They might say you're a terrorist. They may say you are abusing the people of your nation, you know, committing crimes against humanity while they're doing it themselves over here in the United States through the biggest gangs, which is the police force and the military that's ran by this corporation. But they want to act like they have some type of moral compass and talk about what other people are doing when they are the one who's painting them in that manner in the first place.
A coup was staged, which is no question in my mind, and most other people's minds, that the CIA was behind that coup. But Chavez was very smart, and he had people hidden in the palace and so on. And plus he had the people in the streets, took to the streets, and the huge numbers of poor people in Venezuela took to the streets and demanded his return. And so he came back into power. And yeah, the way that coup was fomented was very reflective of what Kermit Roosevelt had done in Iran, of paying people to go out into the streets to riot, to protest, to say this Chavez is very unpopular. And you know, if you can get a few thousand people to do that in television, it can make it look like it's the whole country, and things start to mushroom. So it was very reminiscent of that, except in the case of Chavez, he was smart enough, and the people were so strongly behind him and so expecting this to happen that they overcame it, which was a phenomenal moment in the history of Latin America. Because regardless of what one thinks of Chavez, and I personally have my problems with his rhetoric and his behavior sometimes, but the fact that he has stood up to the United States, and he's done it primarily demanding that Venezuelan oil be used to help the Venezuelan people. That has always been his philosophy. And his success at actually making that happen has its ups and downs, but that's always been the philosophy. And also to use some of that money to help other poor people throughout the continent. The fact that that happened encouraged other countries like Bolivia and Ecuador and Chile and Argentina and Brazil and Uruguay and Nicaragua and Guatemala and so many others to hold democratic elections and vote in presidents who said, our resources must serve our people. So Correa of Ecuador ran on a campaign basically that says the profits from Ecuadorian oil must help Ecuador's poor people. And Morales ran on a campaign that said the profits from Bolivia's gas must help Bolivia's poor people.
Salute to Dre Cobbs. Salute to Dre Cobbs Music. Salute, brother. Peace to my brother, Big Dog Philly OG. Thanks for coming up.
And I don't think that would have been possible had it not been for what Chavez did. So I think history will look back and see this man as being a very key figure in what's really occurring in Latin America today, which is a true nonviolent revolution. There's a democratic revolution happening south of Rio Grande. It's very, very significant, more significant than most people in the United States realize. More than 80% of the population of South America in the last democratic elections has voted in the president that said, no more exploitation by the corporatocracy. Our resources must help our people. And it's been nonviolent. It's been democratic. It's an amazing process that's going on. Iraq actually is a perfect example of the way the whole system works. So we economic hitmen are the first line of defense. We go in and we try to corrupt the governments and get them to.
Big dog, you may want to go out and come back in because I don't know what happened with your device. It's not allowing me to let you come in. Go back out and come back in, good brother.
Accept these huge loans, which we then use as leverage to basically own.
Peace to Dark Chameleon. Thanks for coming up, good brother. Do a mic check.
What up, though? Mic check.
Peace. This is getting on my nerves. We'll let the good brother up. Peace to my brother Big Dog Philly OG. Do a mic check, good brother.
Panama with Omar Torrijos and in Ecuador with Jaime Roldos, men who refused to be
mic check.
Because we send in
Loud and clear, brother. Loud and clear.
jackals either overthrow governments or they assassinate the people who won't be corrupted.
If you want to tap in, just let me know.
Omar Torrijos and Jaime Roldos, they were assassinated because I failed. And once that happens and a new government comes in, and boy, it's going to toe the line because the new president knows what will happen if he doesn't. In the case of Iraq, both of those things failed. Economic hitmen were not able to get through to Saddam Hussein. We tried very hard. We tried to get him to accept a deal very similar to what the House of Saud had accepted in Saudi Arabia. An amazing deal from our standpoint, but he wouldn't accept it. And so the jackals went in to take him out. They couldn't do it. His security was very good. After all, he had one time worked for the CIA. He'd been hired to assassinate a former president of Iraq and failed, but he knew the system. And he had the.
Again, the United States would do the dirt with you to get the dirt on you. All these people who they deem as wicked and oppressive of their people, a lot of these people worked with and for the United States. Now, as far as Iran and Iraq, the United States gave weapons on both sides when they were at war. So they knew what weapons that Iraq had and Iran had because they have the receipt. They furnished the weapons for both sides when they were at war.
These look-alike doubles. It's very hard to assassinate a president unless there's people on the inside helping you. And if the people on the inside don't even know whether they're guarding the real guy or a double, it makes it very difficult for them.
That's the smart thing about Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein had a lot of doubles, and no one knew whether they was even guarding Saddam Hussein or not because he had doubles. He just straight up, he was just swift and witty when it came to dodging the bullets, the bombs, and the assassination attempts of the United States.
Very, very risky for them. So we couldn't take him out. So in 91, the first President Bush sent in the troops. And we figured at that point, which is the last step. If the economic hitmen fail, the jackals fail, then we send in the military. And of course, all these people always know that the military is standing off in the wings to go in if everything else fails. So in 91, we send in the troops and we take out the Iraqi military. So we assume at that point that Saddam Hussein is going to come around. We could have taken him out, of course, at that time, but we didn't want to. He's the kind of strong man we like. He controls his people. We thought he could control the Kurds and keep the Iranians in their border and keep pumping oil for us. And that once we took out his military, now he's going to come around. So
Yet George W. Bush said he was over there talking about this man tried to kill my daddy. When your daddy tried to kill that man first. See,
Big
that's
facts,
the thing.
brother.
They were the aggressor. They went over there January 15th, 1991, and started a conflict with Iraq and tried to assassinate Saddam Hussein, not because of any of the things that they accused him of, because of corporate greed. It's about that oil. Wherever they go, it's about some type of natural resource. They paint the people as a boogeyman in the eyesight, in the minds of the people, and a lot of us buy a hook, line, and sinker because some of us are blind patriots. Not nobody in this audience or on this panel.
I totally agree with you, brother. You was on fucking fire, bro.
I appreciate it, brother.
You is on your shit tonight. Like, real. That's why I'm like, I don't even know why I hit the link. Like, you is on your thing. Like, I could add some things to what you're saying, but what's the point? Like, you on.
Brother, I'm absolutely certain it'd be intricate if you added what you had to contribute to the bill. I'm sure it'd be intricate. I don't let nobody's thinking go discredited and undermined. That's not how I do things. You know, I welcome a brother or sister up here to give the information that they have. The more the merrier when it comes to the information. The more the merrier.
And brother, like the brother said, you on fire because like me and you, we old enough, we experienced this. We seen it on the news, how they demonize these other leaders in these foreign countries for voting rights, for crimes against humanity that they said they did to their people, but turn around and find out later that America is doing the same thing to its people.
Exactly.
In the name, it's just mind blowing, man. Go ahead, brother. I just wanted to tap in and say that.
They're over there fighting to establish democracy in these nations and denying it to us in our damn face.
Yes, sir. And I'm a vet. I'm a disabled vet. I got hurt serving this country. So everything you saying is spot on point. And I remember, I'm going to say this and I'm going to give it right back to you. I remember in the 80s and the 90s, they had something called Soldier of Fortune magazines. If you still had that adrenaline for war, you can get contracted by certain people. And they would send you to different war zones and to knock off people, like you said. I lived and experienced all of that shit. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, sir.
And I want to say something. Like, they really did that, right? Then they really made sure that the only reason why they really want to get into war with other people is to keep these people in power. Like, even right now, right? You see things going on over in Israel. They want to keep these people in they positions. And these people want to take these people out of position, but they want to keep these people in power to keep things the way they are because it helps their narrative. You know what I'm saying? That's why they want to help and protect Israel, like, because they fuck with Israel and they want to keep people that's over in Israel for other reasons. Well, we ain't got to talk about that, right? But they want to keep these people in power. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
And Doc, real quick, what Doc just said, they've been at war with that Middle East for like 50 or 60 years. So this been an ongoing thing. Go ahead, brother, in these public.
Actually, 75 years, brother.
Yeah, I'm a little off, but
Lawana Hedgepeth and Angela Zalikoffer, thank you for coming through. Respect to you. And I want to welcome the sister Grateful to the platform. Peace. Good sister. How you doing?
Great day to all you all. Great day, brothers. I wanted to say that I'm 49, right? 49 to be exact. And what they do is they run the same play over and over and over again in our face. And then they only try to move places or positions to say, oh, this is different. But it's constantly the same play. I've talked to, I live in Florida, right? So it's a lot of military men that are here. So I talked to a brother, an older brother. He's like 87 the other day. He was a part of the Cuban Missile. I never even knew about Cuban Missile protection, right?
Yep, I remember that.
And he came in with his hat on and it said Cuban Missile. So I was like, well, what is that? And he was like, yeah, I was the protection. I was in Cuba sending off missiles and protecting the missiles in Cuba. I said, but fuck you. And you said America. He was like, yeah. And I asked him about this Israel thing. He said, America got to protect Israel. Those was his exact word to me. He said, America is in bed with Israel.
Yeah, that's
I agree
the
with
brainwashing of it. You know, a lot of our former military is brainwashed. We don't have to protect Israel. They choose to protect and financially back Israel. Go ahead, brother.
They helped to steal that land to set up that nation.
Yes, sir.
You know,
yes, sir.
And you know, like the brother said, they use entertainment for distraction. What you said, sister, was very, very intricate.
Yes, sir.
They use the same play because if you look at the conflict that's going on over there now, it's ironic that somebody happened to have a camera pointed at that building as it went down. And I'm going to tell you straight up, that's their rendition of 911. That's what it is. Their rendition of 911. I know what a controlled demolition looks like. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it. Because I don't say something and not prove it because it makes you weak and ineffective. I'm going to prove it is. Somebody's pointing the camera. All of a sudden, and not only that, I didn't see any airplanes. I saw a flash thing which blows out the foundation or whatever beams that holds the building up. Then you hear bang, 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 and the building came straight down. Not a collapse. Buildings don't collapse like that. That was controlled. So it's their rendition of 911 to give a pretense for war. And they're at war because of another damn lie. I'm going to go back to the video right now. If anybody need me to stop it, just let me know.
The economic hitmen go back in the 90s without success. If they'd had success, he'd still be running the country. We'd be selling him all the fighter jets he wants and everything else he wants. But they couldn't. They didn't have success. The Jackals couldn't take him out again. So we sent the military in once again, and this time we did the complete job and took him out, and in the process created for ourselves some very, very lucrative construction deals. We had to reconstruct a country that we essentially destroyed, which is a pretty good deal if you own construction companies, big ones. So
yeah, Dick Cheney owned construction companies. Donald Rumsfeld, George W. Bush himself, and others owned construction companies. Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, all of them was over there in Iraq getting contracts and making billions of dollars over there in Iraq at the same time stealing the damn oil. That's the reason why those Iraqis were killing, murdering, beheading contractors, because they knew that's why they were over there.
And to top it off, when you hey, hold on, check this out. When you blow up a building, you always like set the detonation from the bottom. See, this is a whole key, right? If you know how to blow up a building like I do, right, you're gonna put it at the foundation at the bottom. It's not gonna take place at the top. See, like if a plane hit a building, it's not gonna make the whole foundation crumble from the top to the bottom. It's just gonna take out the top. But if you blow a building up from the bottom, the whole building gonna fall from the bottom all the way down, and
Exactly.
that is some real stuff that people need to recognize when they talk about 9/11, right? Because the building got destroyed from the bottom, and
Exactly.
everything fell. But go ahead.
That was the so-called planes hitting the building with just cooking the bomb, as they say. But that wasn't the first time a plane hit that building. A plane crashed into the Empire State Building before too, which is a much older building. That shit was built in the 30s, and a plane crashed into the World Trade Center before too. But I have a video where buildings burnt for 23 hours and still standing today. Buildings burnt 17 hours. Buildings burnt way longer than some 35, 45 minutes and then fell. And I know, again, before 9/11 happened, they demolished the projects that I grew up in. Not even a month.
Yes, sir. Mine too.
Not even a month before 9/11. A company from Manville, New Jersey called Yanuzi did the demolition. And if you look at any footage of 911 after the buildings fell, you'll see Yanuzi right over there at Ground Zero. You'll see that banner over there, Yanuzi. I can go upstairs and get my shirt with Yanuzi on it because I did work for the people before. See, these people, they play on the emotions of as horrific as it was, they killed people. People were killed. And I have a friend who was going over there helping out, trying to get people out of that rubble. And he had heart problems, had to get a heart transplant, almost passed away because he was going over there digging for people. A good friend of mine. But this is what they do to people, victims on both damn sides.
The economic hitman failed there. The jackals failed there. And as a final measure, the military goes in.
Divide and conquer.
Well, that's what I meant.
Okay,
I
but
Africa was a good example.
it is a good example.
Do
So is the
whatever
Middle East, so South America. Well, yeah, chaos, mayhem, destabilization are the friends of exploitation. And so if you can have internal problems in a country, then it's ripe for exploitation. It's the old divide and conquer. So for example, in the Middle East, the fact that Sunnis and Shiites and Israelis all are at each other's throats works to the advantage of oil companies, because the divide and conquer, if they all came together and found the common enemy, which is the exploiting people, then the oil companies wouldn't have a chance. But as long as they can keep it destabilized. And in South America, it's fascinating how we've seen that throughout the history of Latin America, the indigenous people in the military have usually been opposed ever since the time of the conquest. But in the recent elections in places like Ecuador and Venezuela and Bolivia, these two groups have come together. They've united. And as a result, now you have this amazing revolution that's going on in South America, which is not pleasing to U.S. corporatocracy. And we really blew it there. And from that standpoint, in that the destabilization is no longer happening. These diverse groups have come together because they've realized it's to their self-interest to stick together to fight the common enemy, which is the corporatocracy, which is us.
Corporatocracy.
Really. And Africa is an amazing example. Yes, who's ever heard of Africa? I mean, we hear the name Africa, but who knows anything about Africa? What do we know about coltan in the Congo? What do we really know about diamonds in so many of these countries? What do we really know about oil in the Sudan? We hear these things, but we don't really know much. What we like to say, the American people like to say, the American press likes to say, oh, it's those corrupt leaders. We don't ask who corrupted them. Leaders are not corrupt. They are corrupted. Somebody does it. And we say, oh, tribal warfare. Well, who's creating the tribal warfare? It's been to the advantage of the British, the French, the Dutch, the Germans, whoever happened to be there, now us. to foster this kind of instability, this antagonism, the antagonism between Muslims and Christians and Jews.
That's a big fact, because wherever these nations go, when they leave them in a position that conflict starts. Wherever they go all over the world, a conflict always results in their visit.
I would like to say that people and people that the people in power, right? They always want to solidify their position, and this is a fact that they like. You can look at a whole lot of things that were written. These things are not written for the people. A lot of this stuff is actually made up to keep them in power.
Oh yeah,
You know what I'm
definitely.
you know what I'm saying? Like I always say, I say this to my kids all the time, and they're gonna love me for this later in life. The lawmakers are the lawbreakers.
Huh.
You know what
Say
I'm
it again,
saying?
bro.
The lawmakers are the lawbreakers because the laws of the land are really for the people. It's not for them. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. You know
The
what I'm
sovereign
talking about?
citizens were badges and guns. Those are the sovereign citizens. What they're doing is what our people are trying to get to, because they can go around and commit murder, violate people's rights, and go unpunished for doing it. Can you imagine somebody do something to you, brother Dark Chameleon, and all he have to say is he didn't know that he was violating your rights, and he get, according to the state he's in, qualified immunity? When he went through training, which is supposed to teach him the rights of the people, but they don't give a damn about your rights or mine either. They don't care about our rights. It's about compliance. Doing what they do. It's about compliance. And
So
that's how it is all over the world. Compliance. Either you, what they say, they're thugs, coming thugs, get down or lay down. That's their damn policy.
And I
that's
wanted to say,
correct. Go
oh,
ahead,
go ahead.
Billy. Go
Yeah, I'm
ahead.
gonna be real quick. Thank you, Grateful. And something that the gentleman said, like when I was in Islam, it's like 50 something sects of Islam. If they all would come together in the Middle East and wherever they at, they would be untouchable. But they make sure they're divided, and like you
And
said,
conquer.
they get corrupted by these
Yes, sir.
corporations. Because if you look at like that, basically the where they changed the 10 Commandments to the 10 climate commandments, all the world leaders met there
Wow.
also.
Yeah, exactly.
Under peaceful. But go ahead, brother. That's all I wanted to say.
It's crazy. Go ahead, Sister Grateful.
What I wanted to say is that I have many men of my family and others that I just randomly just happen to just be prone, like I just connect with. I would say the faction is chaos, right? What they do is they promote a lot of chaos, and through chaos, people panic. You panic through chaos because you're worried about your said child, your said wife, your said husband, and you bring on these said factions that they throw and mirror in your face. And the mirroring is what mirroring is a Marians is. I don't know if y'all know that or understand it, but what they do is mirror certain factions in your face, which brings on the chaos to you, that therefore you then subdue it to your said child, your family, and it becomes a problem. So this is their play. They mirror certain shit that's never pop. It can be solved. However, it would never be solved when people attach themselves to things that is not their issue or problem. However, you make it an issue or problem because you're mirroring what is being given to you, but you don't never sit or subject that or subtract that away from you to say, no, wait a minute, no, that's not a part of me. That is not what I'm doing. That's not what this is. And this is what they do. So if I'm listening to this guy here, the enemy publicist is playing, he's only saying what they do. They're constantly playing on your emotions. This is all it is.
I agree.
It's a play. They're constantly playing on your emotions, so they mirror an image in your face. Like you said in Republic, someone was simply sitting there and it was perfectly lined up with a perfect building that was going to get shot down, right? Just like the news of 9/11, which we all knew what that was. What they do is play on your freaking emotions. And said folks that are not even lined up with the rightness within themselves will fall for it and tell you that you're wrong. Tell you that oh no, this is correct. This is it. No, God, this is coming to us. No, it's not. It's not.
And they also want you to pick the side that they pick. That's the problem I have. They want you to pick sides, and they want you to pick their side when you don't even know what's going on. But they want you to pick a side. And what you said, you came in with something very intricate. The Auto Ab Chaos. That's the Masonic motto. Order through chaos. Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is like Latin for order out of chaos. And that's how they do things. They go over there, create the conflict, get between the people, act like they're solving a problem, and then attempt to rule them both. That's what they do. That's how they handle their business. Order through chaos.
This goes on and on. And Africa I think Africa is truly the canary in the cave, in the mine. And it's a dying canary. It's terribly dying. And we don't even look. We don't know. And another problem with Africa is that the people in our own country whose heritage is African, the African Americans, for the most part, don't even know where they were from. They don't know what language their ancestors spoke. So it's hard for them to really relate. Unlike Latin America, for example, we can't.
Now, this is a bunch of bullshit. Now, we are not African American. Barack Obama is an African American. That's the African.
I don't think he's that.
Because listen, hold on, sister. Listen, this is because somebody else is telling you your narrative. That is why that is an issue. Like I don't do that whole telling white people where they from. You know why I don't do that? Because that's just like them telling us where we from. You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing, right? But we do know that they're foreigners. But do you know that you are a foreigner? Is the question, right?
I hate the term. I do not like it.
Exactly. I do not like it either. But I have to use it for lack of better words, right? I have to. Why do I have to use that term? Because that is what it caused, right? But go ahead, sister. My bad.
Well, I was going to say, you constantly hear them speak of us, but are they speaking of them? Say it, pale man. You never hear a pale man speak of their lineage, their verbiage, what they have brought about, what they have done, but they are constantly speaking about said things that has nothing to do with them. Question yourself when they say that. They speak of you, but they don't speak of them. They don't have a story. We do. They
Damn
want
sure
to
don't.
be. They want to be in our story because we are the true tellers of these lands. See, this is the faction, and this is how come they always promoting destruction. They promote destruction because they don't have no beginning, no end. If it does not it exist within us, we know their
Tell
story.
them. Tell
You
them.
know what I said? We know their story. You began to end with us. I created you and I destroy you when I want to. So you want to destroy the faction that you can never destroy. You can make up stories as much as you want to, but you can never take out the light. I am the light. I am Christ like. That crystallization that y'all see is bears in me. I'm the
It's the
bearer.
it's
It's
the
the
case of
womb. You hear me?
it,
I am the bearer as the womb. I am the wombed man over here sitting. I'm the light bearer. So y'all talk about these factions as a puzzle piece, but the puzzle piece sits in the woman, the womb woman, the original. This is they're attacking me. It's an attack on me. They are attacking me. But guess what? You come this way. I know what it is. You can't mess with this. I'm keeping it
I
real
hear
and the whole way buck with all y'all. I'm the light bearer and bringer. They
I hear you,
coming for
sir.
me.
Really do something in Venezuela or Colombia or Bolivia without people in this country taking note, because a lot of those people are from there. We got a lot of people here in this country from Venezuela and Colombia and Bolivia and so on. And they're interested. They know where they're from and they can read the local papers. They can read Spanish. But in Africa, our African heritage people don't even know where they're from and they don't read those papers. And so there's been this huge mask that's been thrown over Africa. I mean, it truly is a dark continent from the point of view of we don't let light in. The media doesn't understand what's going on. It doesn't want to. And the corporatocracy surely don't want us to understand. I mean, the corporations do everything they can to film.
Brother OG Green Machine, Novus Ordo Seclorum is New World Order. Novus Ordo Chaos is order through chaos.
To foment turmoil, mayhem, instability, chaos there, and to keep the information from reaching the American public, from even reaching the press, because that serves their interests best.
Are we going to go to the casualties?
Well, don't forget about them, but put them aside for a moment and just deal with the bigger issue, which is the American public really doesn't know what we're voting for. And we're seeing in the presidential campaigns, that there's an ignorance or there's an avoidance of what's really going on. We don't really talk about the causes behind the immigration problem. We talk about the band-aids to cure it. Should we build a wall? Should we make stricter laws?
Hey, stop it real quick. Let me say something real quick. This is what I be talking about. This is what I be talking about. I'm talking about the whole people as a whole. People that are ignorant and choose and not wanting to see what is the wool clothed over their eyes. Like I don't do that whole racist thing because I believe and I know for a fact that everybody is being told what to do. No matter what you are, it don't matter. You're told to do a certain thing, and that's a part of predictive programming. And like the whole video you playing is touching on so many areas, right? Like you're told to vote, you're told to go to church, you're told to do all of these things, but you don't know that you're told to do these shit. You don't know that. You just do it. And it really works for their narrative and their information, and it really helps push whatever they got going on. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Enemy public, like for real.
I do. I understand exactly what you're saying. It's repetitive, predictive programming. It's repetitive, predictive programming. And you ever hear a song you don't even like so much, you actually start humming that song, and you don't even like it? It's because you're hearing it so much, and they implant it in your brain. And that's what they do. See, certain things I can watch. Why? Because of who I am, and because none of this stuff because I know who my enemy is. Certain people can't watch certain things. Why? Because their mind is not open. They don't use their mind. They don't have the ability to think objectively, or they don't have the ability to think logically. And they're easily manipulated through multi-ethnic destruction in America and never-ending white supremacy. Multi-ethnic destruction in America is media. News, never-ending white supremacy. That's what the news is. And that's how they base the news. It's bias. They say fair and balanced. It's never fair and balanced. It's always swayed and on a slant. They want you to think a certain way. If something happens, they want you to choose the side that they choose, regardless of, and they want to make one the victim and one the villain. That's the way they do things. And most of the time,
Also, brother. Hey, brother. Also, I'm gonna tell you what's the real issue, right? Like you wanna talk about how you wanna give people remedies. Listen, you heard it from Dark Chameleon first. I'm gonna give you the motherfucking remedy, right? This is the remedy. Change the image. That is the remedy for most of what they putting out. This is what they really want to do. They want to tell men what they are, who they are. Like even me and you, right? They tell us that we are killers. They tell us that we are domestic beaters. We leave our children. Like I have to establish a law to make men take care of their children, but really that's a whole lot. Like real men, we all take care of our children. Like this is an image that was put in place, and they try to tell us that we're not great. Like I know I'm great. I don't need nobody to tell me I'm great. I don't need you to make me take care of my kids. I do that anyway, off rep. You know what I'm saying? Like these things, like be really fucking with the imagery and telling us who we supposed to be, and then the people that come up behind us and the people that see us overseas, they think that we are these kind of people. See, that shit works. That shit works.
Because and it's also we have to take some responsibility. Also, not you. Me,
Man, keep your mic. Close your mic off. Bad feedback.
Now, how we are portrayed all over the world, it's not due to the average brother or sister. It's not. It's through entertainment. Some of us don't know how to turn down a part that serves to our detriment. Some of us don't know how to turn parts down like that. Why? Because they want the bag. Now, I said it before. Menace to society. They use a Roman numeral 2. Menace to society was shown all over the world. Boys in the Hood, Colors, and all these movies were shown all over the world. So-called depicting the reality in our neighborhoods. They did this after making our organizations what they are today. The audacity of these bastards after coming into our community and infiltrating our organizations, making our organizations gangs. Crips was not a gang until black CIA operatives went in and corrupted the damn organization. Bloods came from the Crips. Crips came out the Panther Party. They were not what they are today prior to these agents coming in and making it what they are today. And then they're going to depict our brothers in their ugliness all over the world. And when people come here, they see us as bangers. They see us as these people that they see on TV. And then it don't help when a brother is every video he pointing guns. That don't help either. That don't help either. See, the parts we take and the portrayals we have when we are in our music videos, and the sisters who's gyrating all over the place, half nude. They think they think we're bangers, and they think our sisters are whores because of our entertainment. So we got to take some accountability. It's not the average brother or sister. It's through entertainment, because they hate the fact that the so-called gangs is not doing it like they used to do it back in the 90s, early 2000s. They're not doing it like that no more. And I'm for certain they hate it. I love it because they're calm in the streets and not being reckless like they used to be. Very, very, very bloody in the early 2000s. It's not like that no more. That's a good thing, but these weapons of mass distraction and these agents coming in, infiltrating our organizations, they go back to their rank and file. These people who they say they are, they're not doing anything illegal. Okay, you go in and suggest that they do something illegal. You go in and you infiltrate and you corrupt, as the man said, corrupt their organization, neutralize their organization. That's what they do. That's what the man, what's his name? O'Neill did with Fred Hampton. That's what he did. He went back. They're not doing nothing. They're what they say they are. They're helping the people out, because some of these organizations, they embarrassed the federal government. So you're telling me this organization can feed children breakfast every day, and we telling the people, the children in school and the parents in school that we can't feed? The Panther Party started the breakfast program. They got that from them. Before then, children weren't getting served breakfast in school. They started that. And it was embarrassing to the federal government. So they said, look, these people are embarrassing us. On top of this, they give us some type of militarized pride and fight the power type thing. They're putting that in the minds of the people. We have to neutralize that organization. We can't have that. Whatever these organizations are today, they were made that by federal agents. They didn't start off like that. bastards of the party.
But the real issue is the fact that we've destroyed the economies in their countries through our free trade agreements that have benefited the big corporations hugely, but have made everybody.
Peace to my brother Keith West, always coming through. Good seeing you, good brother.
They'll suffer. The workers in the United States, the workers in Guatemala and Mexico and throughout Central America and many parts of South America are suffering terribly. Not one of them wants to be here. I speak Spanish. I live in Florida. I go out and I talk to the Guatemalans who are taking care of everybody's lawns and doing a lot of the other menial work. They don't want to be here. They're not getting rich here. They're sending all their money home. They want to be back in Guatemala or Mexico or Honduras or El Salvador, wherever they're from. These are beautiful countries. They want to be there. There's no work there. And there's no work there because of the laws that we've passed, because of the IMF, because of the World Bank, because of what the corporatocracy is doing to exploit these countries. So if we really want to deal with the immigration problem, that's what we must do, is help these countries get back on their feet and open their doors to their own people to have jobs there. But our presidential candidates aren't addressing that. Although, you know, I at least back in the 70s, and I'm writing about this now in the book I'm working on now, that I was called into Washington to the Army Navy Club, met with a lot of retired generals and admirals to talk about a job that was going on in the Indian Ocean. And I found that, and I found this to be the case, that at the top echelons of the military, they don't want to go to war. You know, they know that that's just going to create more problems. They know that if you want to create terrorism, you know, send in the army. The lower echelons aren't educated about that, don't understand. But the highest echelons, I think, in general, the military doesn't want to go to war. The politicians want to go to war. The corporations want to go to war. Because every corporation many corporations stand to make a tremendous amount of money out of war. So you and I may think that Vietnam was a failure and that Iraq is a failure. But if you own a big industry that has any relationship whatsoever to the war machine, and that includes insurance companies and banks, and includes companies we don't usually think of as being part of the military-industrial complex, if you happen to be the CEO or a major owner of any of those corporations, you think that Vietnam was a huge success, and so is Iraq.
If you have contracts over there during wartime, the war was a success. They don't measure war as being a failure or a success based on casualties on either side. They base the war as a success or failure based on the money that they made, because war makes money.
How about if we use what just happened in Colombia, between Colombia and Ecuador, you know?
Oh, yes, please.
As an example.
Sure, that's great.
Okay. And I was in Nicaragua at the time, so I got an interesting perspective, which was very different from the U.S. press here. In fact, I was supposed to be meeting with Ortega, but he had to fly out the morning I was supposed to meet with him to go to Santo Domingo early for this meeting that was held with all the heads of states of Latin America, basically condemned Uribe of Colombia. But if we look at the situation in Colombia, which is, let me think of the word here. If we look at the situation in Colombia, which is symbolic of so many, you go back to the time when I was in Colombia in the 70s, and I was there to get huge World Bank and Inter-American Development Bank loans for Colombia to build infrastructure project using U.S. corporations to do it. Particularly, we were building big hydroelectric dams, transmission lines, pipelines, those sorts of things. And the poor people of Colombia objected very, very strongly. The campesinos, the majority of the people. For example, we would dam up rivers to create hydroelectric projects and destroy vast amounts of farmlands, destroy towns. And then we would build transmission lines from these across llanos and jungles and through people's backyards and these big transmission towers. But the people who lived in those areas didn't get any electricity. They got absolutely no benefits. They were outraged. And so they formed what we would call guerrilla groups, sort of like the Boston Minutemen. And it was fascinating that my company, Charles T. Main, we had offices in Barranquilla and in Bogota, Colombia. We were designing these huge projects. We were not allowed to send any U.S. citizens, engineers, to the project site, only Colombians, because it was too dangerous. the guerrillas, as we call them, would come down and attack the construction camps. And they would send the workers down the river in canoes. They didn't hurt them, but they scared them. And this went on and on. And meanwhile, now oil exploration starting in other parts of Colombia, and similar things are happening there. The campesinos are very strongly objecting to oil, and the guerrillas would come in. And originally they were supported financially by Russia and China to a certain degree, and to a certain degree by Cuba. And of course, we then painted them as being communists. And most of them didn't care at all about philosophy. They just simply wanted to have their lands. These were desperate people. Their lands were being destroyed. Their families were starving.
Salute, beast of burden. Thanks for coming through, family.
And they wanted to get us out of there. And they wanted not to have this happen anymore. But we accused them of being communists. Well, as communist funds began to dry up, as things happened in Russia and China and Cuba, that funds began to dry up, they turned to extortion, blackmail, kidnapping, and drugs as a way of financing themselves. And over time, that became much more a part of their business. It was one of their few ways of financing themselves. You know, we all think détente is such a great thing, the peace between the Soviet Union and the United States. But there's a dark side to that, too. There was a balance when the Soviet Union was there. If the United States put too much pressure on a country to bend to our will, the country would sort of slip off toward Russia. Then we would back off the position. Once the Soviet Union was gone, there was nobody for anybody to turn to, except terrorism, in essence. And so today we have a situation, for example, in Colombia, where you have these organizations like FARC that to a large degree are financed through drugs and extortion and other illegal activities, but their basis is in defense of the people to a very large degree. And recently, I was in Nicaragua at the time. Colombia, President Uribe, sent troops into Ecuador to take out the leader of FARC, who was that particular leader, who actually, according to my sources, was in Ecuador to negotiate a peace settlement and arrange for a hostage exchange. He and about 20 other people of his group were all killed by the Colombian president. And of course, Correa, the president of Ecuador, objected very, very strongly. And Hugo Chavez joined in with Correa. And there was a huge conflict about this. And all of the presidents of South America met in Santo Domingo, and they all condemned Uribe. But the United States defended him, including all three presidential candidates, Clinton, Obama, and McCain, all came to Colombia's defense, which was absurd. One of the things that was happening.
They came to Colombia's defense because of the drugs, the money that was made. It's not a secret that our neighborhoods was flooded with drugs in the 80s and the 90s by the federal government. Yet they passed a law at the same time. The current president and a former president, Joe Biden and Bill Clinton, wrote the 94 crime bill after flooding the communities with drugs and massively incarcerated some of our people.
Happening there is Colombia is the largest recipient in the hemisphere, one of the largest in the world, of U.S. military foreign aid to fight these FARC people. Uribe doesn't want peace with FARC because then his funds dry up. And really what that money is used for more than anything else is to defend our oil companies in Colombia and the construction of pipelines. So we use this excuse, whether it's called communism back in the old days, the Red Scare, or whether it's called Al-Qaeda or terrorism or whatever it is, we find these enemies.
Whatever it is, you help establish it, and even to the point of giving them their name. Stop fronting.
And in fact, we create these enemies. And this gives us a foothold into the country so we can have our military in there and we can use them to defend our oil companies, which in the case.
Did you hear what he just said? He said they create these entities. They create Al-Qaeda. They create Al-Qaeda. What's the other group over there in the Middle East?
What it is, he said communism, Al-Qaeda. He said one more word, but it's a true tale, which we know.
All those ones over there, they created. All the ones they call themselves fighting over there, they helped to create, even to the point of giving them their named them. ISIS, they named that ISIS. All of that.
Yes, but enemy public. This is what we know. We listen, and I want to say this. I want to make it. I mean, very clear. We have from birth, from young, known that these plays have been played. Right? We didn't know that to the extent because our folks was just, you know, coming out a certain wave or said our folks wasn't as advanced as we are because we advanced people now. We're very advanced. Not saying that our parents was dumb. Not saying it was our parents took nothing because these plays wasn't as advanced as they are now. Our parents ain't go for shit either, right? But what they're trying to do is to continue to play in our face because our parents just said, "I want to make sure my children are good, so I'm gonna allow this shit to play out. I just want to make sure they good, they grow up, they get to where they need to be, so they played along for us, for you and I, to get to this place that they knew that we was gonna destroy these folks." And I'm saying it because that's what I was told from young, baby. I know that you see certain things, and I'm not going along with it. However, I know that you're gonna change this motherfucking world. Your mama told you, and your daddy told you, enemy public, that you was gonna be the changer of this existence and this experience. And that's how come you're moving like you're moving. Because I was told the same thing. Am I telling a lie or truth?
Are you telling the truth? You're telling the truth. You're telling the exact truth.
Of Colombia and Ecuador and throughout so much of Latin America are terribly, terribly exploitative and destroy environments, destroy people. The largest environmental lawsuit in the history of the world today is being brought on behalf of 30,000 Ecuadorian Amazonian people against Texaco, which is now owned by Chevron. So today it's against Chevron, but for activities conducted by Texaco throughout the years of dumping, which is estimated to be more than 18 times more than what the Exxon Valdez dumped into the coast of Alaska. In the case of Ecuador, it wasn't an accident. The oil companies did it intentionally. They knew they were doing it to save money out there rather than arranging for proper disposal.
That's unbelievable.
It is.
It's so blind because they're just killing themselves in the end.
Well, they make a hell of a lot of money in the process.
Right.
And none of these executives expect to be, to hold their job for more than a few years anyway. So
right.
Make a killing while you're there.
A literal killing.
That's kind of an obscure question.
So in 1971, the United States was very much in debt as we are today. And foreign companies started. Let me set that over here. So in 1971, the United States was very deeply in debt, as it is today, and we were on the gold standard. And so other countries began to call in the debt in gold. They didn't want dollars, they wanted gold. We couldn't pay it. And so Nixon and his buddies took us off the gold standard. And of course, the argument at the time was made that there's no economic reason to be on a gold standard. But the truth of the matter is, we couldn't pay. We were bankrupt. We couldn't pay in gold. So we simply went off the gold standard and said, here, we'll pay you in dollars, but we don't need to back it up with gold. But that then threatened to undermine the dollar as the world currency because it put it in huge question. So in 1973, when the OPEC oil embargo hit, it created an ideal opportunity to do something that was even better than the gold standard. And at that point, some of the Treasury people came to me and other economic hitmen and said, listen, we can't allow OPEC to hold us up anymore. We can't allow them to blackmail us. You got to come up with a scheme so this can't happen again. Well, the scheme that we came up with, and this is the short version, is that the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia, we knew we had to do it through the House of Saud because they were corruptible, and they had more oil than anybody else. The House of Saud agreed to return almost all the money that they made selling petroleum to the world to the United States and invested in U.S. government securities. The interest from those securities would be used to finance the westernization of Saudi Arabia, so that the Treasury Department would have that interest to hire U.S. corporations to build power plants, desalination plants, huge cities. And the House of Saud also agreed to keep the oil prices within limits acceptable to our oil companies, and most importantly, perhaps, never ever to sell oil for anything other than dollars. So suddenly,
there is no fairness, and it's always a robbery when there is no fair exchange. See, that's how these economic hitmen represent these countries, in particular the United States. When they go, they want to actually go and rob these nations of their natural resources. And if they don't comply, they either corrupt the leaders, have them compromise, or overthrow the leader, or assassinate the leader. That's how they operate.
in a couple of years, the dollar had moved from being on the gold standard to just being free floating, basically, to now developing its own standard, the oil standard, which in many respects was much more powerful than the gold standard, because after all, oil has inherently more value in the modern world than gold does. And so today we've been struggling all these years with this same situation where we're on the oil standard. And now we're once again at this position where we hold tremendous amounts of debt. We're a huge debtor nation, the largest debtor nation in the world, in the United States. And other countries are beginning to say, but we want our debt in something other than dollars, because we don't like the dollar. We don't trust it. So Saddam Hussein threatened to go onto what he called an oil burst, oil exchange, where he would sell oil for something other than dollars, yen or euros or some other currency. And that's one reason that we went after him. That's just one more reason. And today, interestingly enough, Iran is doing the same thing. Iran is offering to sell oil. In fact, they say they want to sell oil not for dollars ever. They want to sell it for other currencies.
They want something for their oil that is tangible and not the fiat money that America offers.
So can I say this real quick?
Go ahead.
As I'm listening to him, I'm getting it's coming to me that they're constantly wanting to give their narrative on this, how they play, how they move, and they want us to attach to it. I'm feeling like that's the issue. We're so caught up in the way they move, how they speak, what they're doing, and we're not placing ourselves and our imagery in here. We're just so caught up in their imagery, what they've done, what they did. No, we've never been attached to that. So how come we're attaching to it? That's like indoctrination. We're sitting here and we're listening to this and we know what they've done. So I'm not attached to it, and neither are you. So is it not us to make our own play and position ourselves and give ourselves the narrative? So now,
yeah, for somebody like yourself and myself, Dark Chameleon, and people in the listening audience, that's it's really about the information. See, you're not attached to it, but a lot of people will buy all of what they've done, hook, line, and sinker, under patriotism. They're patriots, blind patriots that would support everything that these economic hitman has done, because they're saying they're doing it on behalf of the country, but they're only doing it on behalf of corporate greed and corporate interest. That's the difference. See, I don't go by what I know, because I know I have to give the people who don't have the information because once I receive my eureka moment, that's my eureka moment. I got to give others theirs.
okay, understood. So how long should we sit wayside?
Well, I see it like this. I'm steadfast when it comes to teaching my people, not necessarily teaching, but giving the information. And I'm patient. Why? Because somebody was patient with me.
This is a huge threat to us. I think it's the primary reason why we're making threats as if we're going to attack Iran. I don't think it has nearly as much to do with nuclear energy as we like to think it does. It has to do with oil and the oil bursts. Because if Iran, in fact, does sell oil for something other than the dollar, it puts the dollar in a very weak position. And if someone wants to bankrupt us, someone like China or Japan or one of the other big holders of our debt, they can call in our debt in euros or in something else. But they can only do that if they can buy oil in that other currency, because oil is the true currency that's out there today. Well, oil is the ideal fuel for the corporatocracy. And so when you have a resource like that, you can really control it. And of course, the corporatocracy likes that. Also, everything downstream. You have to have gas stations, you have to have pipelines, you have to have all these things. And that's a reason why biofuels, ethanol, things like that are acceptable to them, that more acceptable to Washington, to the corporatocracy, than, for example, solar, which you don't have that kind of control over. So oil is really it's a political football. It is a tremendous convenience for those who want to control, and it is the backing of our currency today. So the dollar is backed by oil, so it makes it very hard to talk about getting off oil from a political standpoint. You know, if every tile on every roof was a solar panel, which is technologically possible, think of what that would do. Now, you know, people know energy, know that there's peak times of using fuel, and you can't, you know, it's hard to use solar at night, although it's definitely not impossible. We put solar units out for some of the communities in the Amazon, and they have big batteries that they put it into, and they
Hey, they must have knocked the brother off. In public, what we doing is very key. Most of our people are still indoctrinated. What Graceful said was a big fact, but most of our people still believe in this government, and it ain't even a government.
Truth. I was chewing ice, but that's true, Philly. That's the issue. We're definitely trying to bring our brothers and sisters up out of the beast and bring them into themselves, into the enlightenment of understanding that, listen, we have all been screwed. I would say it once indoctrinated. You were. That's the time you went and joined the whatever faction of the government. We all have been messed up. We all have. However, what we're trying to do now is to bring ourselves to a position in this experience that while we're here, we're going to experience the greatness of all of our versions in the way that we see fit. We're no longer going to let them tell us what our experience should be and how great it should be. We are giving it to ourselves. So when you see things like this, it's like, okay, wait a minute. We knew it, and now you have to. You're presenting it because you have to, because you know your time is up. The sun don't like you. Okay, the ancestors don't appreciate you, and they gave you a said storyline for yourself. You played your position. Now your position is over. So how long should we continue to even deal with the faction of this? Should we not be getting to what it is that we should be doing? And that's also going to be a problem because a lot of our folks are super messed up in the head. They are not aligned with us.
And what's crazy about that is all out of all that he's done, he still shows no loyalty. There's no loyalty in them. He did all of what he's done all over the world, and now all of a sudden he wants the people to think that he has a moral compass and acting like he's a whistleblower. That shit's crazy.
Must cut back. We must control population to some degree, and we must control the per capita expenditure on economic goods, on materialistic goods. We must cut back. We cannot expect technology to solve these problems entirely. We have to also solve them by spirituality, by realizing, for lack of a better word, spirituality, by recognizing that happiness doesn't come through consuming more and more energy, consuming more and more products. It comes from something much deeper, something much more basic, that feeling of oneness, that bliss, that connection with all the plants and animals and elements and other people. We have a great deal of power over these corporations. And so we're at this amazing time in history where there's a world empire. And I think for the first time, we don't want to overthrow it. We don't want to get rid of it. We want to change it. We want to do something that's never been done in history before. We want to break an old pattern, because if this empire collapses, then history tells us that there'll probably be some wars, economic or military wars, and eventually some new empire will emerge. We don't want that. What we'd rather do is transform this empire, make it into a true model of a world where we can live sustainably, environmentally sustainably, in a socially just world.
Oh, this right here is hard to listen to because it's a bunch of bullshit.
In a peaceful world. And so I think we have this opportunity now to tell those corporatocracy people, okay, go ahead, maximize profits, but only do so within the context of always.
Corporatocracy is the order of the corporate or the corporations. It's not like the so-called democracy. It's a corporatocracy. That means they don't care nothing about the people. It's all about personal corporate gain. And he wants us to believe that some new, better world under the same people is going to come out. No, I don't think so. Nah.
Heading toward creating an environmentally sustainable, a socially just, and a peaceful world for everyone on the
Anybody want to tap in, just let me know. I'll stop the video.
Planet. Because we know that our world won't be stable and just and sustainable unless the entire planet is. We live in a very, very small community. That's the other thing that's grown out of this empire. Is the world community has shrunk tremendously. When I was an economic hitman in the 70s, several times I spent 3-4 days trying to make a phone call from Jakarta, Indonesia to Boston, Massachusetts. Today, you can call any place on the planet instantaneously. You can go to the deepest part of the Amazon and through satellite phones. You can send a whole book by email almost instantaneously from any place on this planet. We are a very, very small world. And I have a grandson. He's about 6 months old now. I'm very aware of the fact that my grandson cannot possibly hope to inherit a sustainable, peaceful, stable, socially just world unless every child today growing up in Ethiopia, in Indonesia, in Bolivia, in Palestine, in Israel also has that same expectation.
Not in the United States, though. The hell with us, huh?
So here we are at this amazing time in history. Small world, ruled by the emperor, which is a corporatocracy, which is it's a corporate ruling. It's a commercial. It's an economic thing. It's not a military thing. And these corporations are very, very vulnerable. We can turn them around, and we must turn them around. Where does the desire to keep making more come from? Where does greed come from?
Sure.
Where does, well, I think that greed in a way is our measure of success. So if I'm a corporate executive and I'm making $5 million a year, and the guy in charge of my rival company is making $6 million, I feel I got to do better. I got to surpass him. That's my measure of success. If I'm an athlete, same sort of thing. The athletes are all vying with each other to see who makes the most money, because that's how we measure our success in general. And of course, it's a false measure of success, because we all know really happiness is the success. What kind of a life do we lead? How do we relate to our families? How do we relate to the world? And if in the process of making this extra $1 million as a corporate executive or a movie star or an athlete or whatever, we're also creating a bigger gap between us and the people in Indonesia who are making the shoes that we wear as an athlete or as a corporate executive, or the clothes that we wear as a movie star, then in the long run, we're making this a much less stable world, a much more dangerous world for ourselves and our progeny. And so we must turn this thing around and really look at what is it that we value. It really isn't money. And, working with CEOs and people in top management for many, many years, as I've had, including I still continue to. I give talks to big corporations and their executives. I just came back recently from giving one. I'm very struck by the fact that I've never met an evil CEO. They may exist, but I haven't met any. I've never met one that wants to see Florida sink beneath the ocean. I've never met one that wants to see the ozone layer destroyed or wants to see more poverty and misery in the world. What I need is men and women who have been taught in business schools, who have been taught within their corporate cultures that they must maximize profits regardless of the costs, the social and environmental costs. But they don't really want to do that. And they're really not buying into this idea that they got to make an extra $1 million to compete with the guy in the next post. That's really not what they're about, as far as I can see. They do it because that is their measure of success. It's the same reason that when it starts when we're in school, I mean, the kid sitting next to us gets an A and we're getting a B, and there's pressure put on us to do better than them or excel in a sport for whatever reason. With this constant thing of this is how we measure ourselves. We really need to turn that around. It would be such a different world if the Fortune 500 were not the wealthiest 500 people or the wealthiest 500 companies, but instead were those that do the most to make a better world for our children. Just think if Randy Hayes, who founded Rainforest Action Network, was in the Fortune 500, not because of money he makes, but because of what he does. Just think, what if people like that were Time Magazine's Man of the Year? This is the direction we must move in. And you and I can create that. It's in our hands to do that. And I also think we need to understand that almost every executive out there is looking for that too.
Obviously, they love their grandchildren. They don't want to see the entire world destroyed.
Well, it's our form of adulation. So, how do we honor corporate executives? We honor them by making
A lot said, gentlemen. Yeah, this is what they do. They go, they cause chaos, confusion, destruction, and then when they have had enough, they then come out and say, "Well, this is what has been done," which we know that you was perfectly fine with it to get yourself into some said state of fake wealth, to position yourself there that you're comfortable. But then now you want to come and then now say help said folks And no color doesn't exist when it comes to these lines, because they will harm their own too, just like they harm us. However, what what is our standing? Like, we constantly play these clips all day, every day. We constantly say what has been said or done. What is our statement? So this is where I'm at. What are we gonna do? Am I freaking gonna leave this avatar, leave this experience, not even having to experience the movement that we need to make for us? Like, we're so afraid of giving each, making a melting pot for ourselves, like putting the money in a pot to say that we really could take whatever we wanted to take. No one of us are willing to do it. I don't care if you put $1 in the pot a day. We can do it, but we're so
That's,
afraid that somebody's going to run off with our money. We're so
that's the.
afraid of these things.
I agree. Um, it's our problem is mainly is we don't want to be solely responsible for ourselves because we're so used to not being solely responsible for ourselves as a people. Some of us are solely responsible for ourselves as an immediate family, but as far as a extended family, all of us in totality, we don't want to. Some of us don't want to be solely responsible, and also it's exactly what you said. It's that trust thing. We trust everybody else, but we don't trust each other. Now, those of us who work for a living, when we first get our job, okay, we're looking to get paid. We don't even care. These people take what they're going to take out of our money before they send us our money. Before we get paid, they take what they don't ask us how much we want to contribute. They just tell us what we're going to contribute to this society, and they give us the rest of our money. And we trust these people, but we don't trust each other. That's problematic. And we'll never get anywhere unless we learn how to pool our resources. We won't get anywhere without that.
And brother, let me say this. It ain't that we ain't doing it. It's that a lot of us haven't heard about it. It's plenty people gathering their money, buying real estate online, adding, doing tribe work, putting funds aside. We can't say we even got some that's challenging the education system. It may not
I,
be millions of us, but
I
it's
agree
some of
with
us
you.
out here doing it. We ain't
Well,
just doing this shit online.
I should have rephrased that. Not enough of us are doing it. When I say that, I don't say that nobody's doing it. I say not enough of us are doing it
Yes, sir.
because
Yes, sir.
some of us act like niggas and don't want to do nothing but besides our immediate family. But I know what the sister Bethy is doing and others are doing. All the other chiefs are doing, and
Yeah,
I
that's right.
applaud that. But not enough of us is doing what they're doing.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with that. Like, not enough is challenging what we're talking about. Too many of our
Exactly.
people are still believing in this system instead of challenging.
I agree. I agree. I mean,
I,
not enough of us doing it.
Not only that, it's a fear factor.
Yes.
Fear weighs heavy on us. I don't know how come. Fear weighs heavy on our persons. Like,
It's because of
if
this.
if
It's
I can
the
say,
religious influence, sister. That's why most of our people live in fear because of
Peace,
Christianity,
brother
Islam,
Equals.
and all the other stuff. Go ahead, sister. My bad. But that's
I
why
just
we
wanted to
live
say
in
that.
fear. That's why we ain't taught to invest because we taught to invest in the church, not our families and ourselves.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's
Yes,
brother.
why I go hard against religion because they're taking our investment money and running with it. But go ahead, brother.
No, that's
Yeah, I mean,
factual because they
this,
don't fear giving it to the church. They don't fear that at all. They go up in church every goddamn weekend and give it away, no problem. Because God said, I can give you my money. But you can't say it sit. And even if we was to do it in a trust fund, like we can do
hello.
this. It's just a matter of y'all people lining y'all mind state up to say, look here, I can put up $5 a week. I won't even I tell people every day, I give them, I don't care if it's $1. Put it up one day a week in a trust fund for all of us. Every
and,
last
and,
one of us that got this
and,
knowledge,
and
we
grateful.
can do it.
And grateful. You know, none of us even have to be responsible for it. We can hire an accountant because that's how the smart ones do. So one person ain't responsible. They pay that accountant $2,000 to do his job, and he's accountable for it. I tried to do this with a group 4 or 5 years ago. They didn't want to do it, but it's all good. It's still getting done. But go ahead, brother.
No facts. I'm ready to do it. Like I got some money I can put up right now. I tell people all the time, like, listen, I move a certain way. I'm not afraid out here going and getting it. Listen, I'm from the old school. Okay, I'm a Carolinian. All right. I was given this thing from birth. Okay, these old folks told me from freaking since I was came out. At 4 years old, I was responsible for motherfuckers that was my age and younger. Okay, I've been on this. They gave me this responsibility at a very young age. I've always had this knowledge. This didn't come to me as I got older. It was given. I'm responsible. So I'm saying, like, listen, even if you don't trust yourself, trust some outsider. Know that everybody ain't go against you. Yes, yes, we've been fucked over. Yes, they have put imagery in our face that they have fucked over us. But we are not like that, y'all. We really aren't. You gotta get out there. You gotta just step into your greatness and know that we are here to really help one another. We really are here to
that's
help one
why I say,
another.
that's why I say when people say to me that, oh, the Willie Lynch letter was fake, while proving with their actions that the Willie Lynch letter is in effect, full effect. How could you say something is fake while you are reinforcing some of the attributes of the letter? Because it's in some of our psyche that we cannot trust our people. Some of them earn the distrust. Now, I'm not going to front. Some of them earn the distrust. But when you meet a person, you just have to, what I say all the time, watch them on a protracted period. I'm not saying automatically trust somebody when you meet them. That's foolish. I would never do that. But what I'm saying is you watch a person on a protracted period, and then when you deem them trustworthy, then you do business with that brother or sister. Yeah, we have to get to some commonality and start building because nobody's going to do it for us. If you're not going to contribute to your own salvation, something is wrong with your thinking. It's because the key word is the possessive pronoun, your, my, ours. It's our work to do, nobody else's.
Hey, I would like to cut you off real quick and say something because the whole point, right? Like if people ask questions, right? You got questions about who, what, how this is. Like it's different when you know what it is. It hit different. It's like having a gun and not being able to shoot that gun. Right. The information is an interpretation of the truth. Right?
because you're gonna protect your family. You're gonna protect yourself at all. Any type of anyway, right? No matter what happens, you're gonna protect yourself. And the problem lies within the lawbreakers, the lawmakers. Like, listen, I'll go to prison. You'll go to prison, and I will. And when I protect my shit, that's real talk.
I mean, if it's nothing that you would be there for, I mean, I can understand people go to prison, people go to jail for real stupid stuff. I mean, stupid stuff. And like I always say to those who are out there banging on each other and going to jail for it, and they talk about how they used to bang and how they, put in work. And when it comes to dealing with our people and changing the condition of our people, some of them want to get corporate now and they get paperwork. That's good because that shows your establishment. But sometimes you got to go beyond that, especially when you're dealing with a people who don't respect you and what you're attempting to establish or have a
to have a certain type of response, like to have like information, like I really believe like a person should be who they want to be. Like it don't matter. Like you should stand on your shit. Like I stand on my shit. When I talk shit, I always stand on my shit, my square. Like if anybody know Dr. Chameleon, like I'm gonna stand on what I deem as necessary to be standing on. Like people be like, oh well, he talks bad shit about women. Listen, I talk bad shit about people. Fuck a woman. I'm not putting nobody on no pedestal. It's about the people. If you feel like I'm talking something about a woman or anything, then that's your motherfucking problem. Like I do people shit. Like a woman is not subjective, dismissive to the information that they try to push. They try to tell us to put somebody better. It's about people. It's about being a man. It's like real shit. It's like the people. Like, aren't you a person? Why do people have to establish some type of hierarchy above you? Are you like that? Do you want that? Do you want somebody to be above you?
Oh hell no, nobody be above me. Hell no.
But that's what they teach, dog.
Yeah, that's what they teach, but I'm gonna say it like this, and I can only speak from experience. I'm married, and my wife, without any shadow of a doubt, earned her position. She earned her pedestal. And if I can put her on a pedestal as tall as the damn Burj Khalifa in Dubai, she'll be on that pedestal.
For sure. Like that's real talk. Like I'm just saying, like I'm not saying that you're not supposed to put a person above yourself, right? I'm just saying, like you come first.
Oh yeah,
Like
I can't take care of her if I don't take care of myself. But let me tell you something. She's an immediate goddamn second. Put it that way.
right. That's the part that fucks people up when they hear me speak. They be like, oh well, oh no, you woman bashing and all this. Like, no, I don't woman bash. I people bash. Like, I don't do like uh gender uh gender roles and talking about.
Gonna
I
divide.
don't do yeah, and I don't do like people bashing either, right? I don't do that race code. Like, listen, a person is a person. Like if that person did not really hurt you, why do you have that energy on that person? You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I
there,
that
there,
you
there,
according to what they show you. That's why I say watch on a protracted period. You treat a person on what they show you, and if that person show you who they are, believe that's who they are. If they show
exactly.
So can I say this? Enemies public. I did listen. Your woman didn't earn her position. You both you both agreed to a position to be in the space with one
no,
another.
you're
Okay.
misunderstanding. You're
Yeah, I know.
misunderstanding.
I just wanted to say that because no, you earned your
Hold
position.
on.
She earned hers. So what y'all did was equally say that we appreciate us in this position. That I see you, you see me, and I want to be in this space with one another, and we're gonna do this thing with one another. Because I do with my man. No, ain't nobody earned nothing. What we did was be that we were
What?
and
Hold
came
on.
together and said, we're going to be together because I appreciate who you are. You appreciate who I am. And we're going to work this thing out. And we're going to continuously we're going to walk this path together now because we see ourselves in this place and this is what we're going to do. So nobody had to earn nothing because her earnings was already done before she got with you. Just like your earnings was already done before you got with her.
And
Okay?
Mm-mm.
I had to
Mm-mm.
respectfully disagree with that because I don't just
Yeah,
get
yeah, I disagree with that too. But go ahead.
say she, I'm gonna say her position, as far as I'm concerned, is solid and it's tight. When I say earn, I don't mean that. I don't mean it in the way you're talking. I mean that she's solidified and tight, and her spot is solid
Yeah,
because of
and
because of our
Like,
laws.
like, like on some real boss shit. Like, you don't earn nothing. You are who you are because I like you, because I fucks with you. Like, it's different. Like, people need to understand the words that they use, and it don't really
yeah,
predicate, and it don't hit right when you
but they
use the
should be
wrong
put on a
words.
pedestal because they are the carriers of light. You know what
Listen,
I
I'm
mean?
a
They
carrier of
should be.
life too. Hey, listen, bro. Just
Yeah,
just
but you
listen.
ain't physically carrying it. And like I
Hey,
said,
listen. Yes,
these
yes, I
religions,
do.
And not only
these
that,
Yes,
religions,
yes,
these
men do
religions
physically
downplay the
carry.
woman
Listen,
role,
listen.
and a
Just
lot
because
of
it's
us are
light.
still doing it, but we shouldn't.
Listen. Just because you
I
like
like to see a man carry a baby 9 months. He carrying
just,
sperm, but he ain't carrying the baby.
hey,
Yeah,
listen.
he's
There's
carrying
no
sperm and
disrespect to
blood. We
the.
all got that, but they ain't.
Listen,
They're not. You're
there's
not the
no point
portal.
to. There's no point of putting a portal.
That's the bearer of life. Ain't no life coming through here. See, they taught us that immaculate conception shit, and it ain't real. So we
Yeah,
need
I
to
agree.
worship our sisters, our mothers, our
I'm
wives,
not.
our
I'm not gonna put nobody better than me. Never. No how.
But
then
that's
you'll probably die lonely then.
that's the patriarchal way. I believe in the patriarchal way because I came here from through my mother. I believe in the matriarch. I don't believe in that
Yes,
patriarch
sir.
bullshit, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Because that puts the man. Because for one, none of us died to bring nobody here. My mother almost died to bring me here. Every woman who goes through childbirth almost died giving childbirth. So I ain't on that patriarchal shit. I'm on that matriarchal shit. My wife, like I said, she's on hers and she deserves it.
Big facts.
Hey, listen. Don't disrespect the women. Like I don't woman bash. I do real life bash. Like a woman's body is to be respected in the life, and having a portal is to. But
You're breaking up, good brother. On that note, I want to draw this stream to a conclusion. Um, Everybody can do their final statements, thoughts, or what have you. I want to leave this right here. I mean, anybody can take their a few minutes and do so. Don't all speak at once.
I will say, great information. You're only what you did today is furthermore uh, show us what they are constantly pushing. You know, constantly pushing their narrative, constantly pushing their destruction on us for us to be attached to. And I would say that we have to be or have discernment in not attaching to their destruction and chaos because they want us to be the chaotic. I'm gonna use that word, chaotic. They want us to be chaotic, which means they want us to be distressed and displaced. So we move different, and then we'll be the ones to bring the stress and the chaos and the destruction. You understand? This is how come they also placed in front of every one of us that said folks that look like us are the ones that brings destruction. But no, it's not us. So please be mindful. Take care. Stand your ground though at the same time. Don't take no shit. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Indeed.
Don't take no shit and don't be fearful all here. Don't be fearful in any turn. Because they want to also place fear within the chaos of what they're doing. You stand your ground. You be exactly what you are because you know what you are. You are the rightful being of this land. You stay true, you stay great, and you stay in your godlike state of mind, state, and being. In the likeness of kind that you know that you want this to be the greatest version and experience of yourself. And I'm
I
out.
thank I
And you,
thank you, sister,
fellas,
for coming
you
up.
and your wife, big ups. High
Salute
vibration.
to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to thank my brother, Big Dog Philly OG, for coming up. I want to thank my brother, Dark Chameleon, for coming up. I want to thank Easter Burden, my brother Keith West, my brother JJ, the Enlightening One, my brother OG Green Machine, my brother Equator 7, respect. I want to thank Lawana Hedgepath for coming through. Thank you for coming through. I also want to thank, I'm trying to go up all the way up. If I miss you, just charge it to my memory. I want to thank my brother Hawkeye, Black Panther, Jackie Brown, I want to thank you for coming up. The brother Smoke Signal, the brother the realist McCoy for coming up. Thanks for coming up. I appreciate that. See how far I can go up. My brother Jared Jaguar, thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. I want to thank the good brother Warfare K for coming up. If I didn't say he who lightens, I want to thank you for coming up also. I appreciate it. This is your brother Nasir. I hope this stream was enlightening. I hope the information was pertinent to our people. This is your brother Nasir. And this is the Enemy's Public. Like, share, subscribe, rewatch the stream. Leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.
A once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. A rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise. Author Angela King James presents Fire. Get it on Amazon, on paperback, or Kindle.
So, for a good read, my wife's book, Fire, is on Amazon, on paperback, or Kindle. Angela King James, the book's called Fire, F-Y-R-E. I could guarantee this is a good read, and I can guarantee that once you start reading, you're going to want to continue reading, and it's going to be very hard for you to put the book down. I have a few pages left on the book. It's 490 pages. I have a few pages left on the book, and as soon as I get off this stream, I'm going to read some more. That's just how good the book is. I'm not saying it because it's my wife's book. I'm saying it because it's a actual fact, the absolute truth that the book is self-explanatory. Fire.
Yo, the enemy's public, I gotta keep my eyes open. Pay attention, stop walking around like you blindfolded. This not the World Cup, but Nasir be kicking knowledge. This the type of information you can never learn in college. It's time to fight back, it's no more trying to play it cool. We got interviews, podcasts, and got the latest news. So sit back and relax, we about to get it started. Earth is a canvas, and guess who's the con artist? They brainwashing us, the system corrupted. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. I said you are now rocking with the enemy's public. Hey.
A once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. A rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise. Author Angela King James presents Fire. Get it on Amazon, on paperback,